De regagner vos places. Nous allons reprendre cette journée de travail. Nous avons donc vu hier quels étaient les parties des succès de l'examen périodique universel et une partie des défis. Aujourd'hui, nous allons nous attaquer à un élément bien précis, qui est celui du fait que l'examen périodique universel offre l'opportunité de faire un bilan en matière de droits fondamentaux. Alors, qui dit bilan, dit bien entendu un certain nombre de méthodes de travail pour établir ce bilan, pour dresser ce bilan. Et ça, nous aurons l'occasion d'y revenir plus en détail cet après-midi. Mais nous allons commencer la journée par un autre élément qui est essentiel quand on va établir un bilan, c'est la notion participative. C'est-à-dire que, et surtout pour nous en tant que membres de la société civile, il ne s'agit pas simplement de faire un travail d'expertise, où un certain nombre de personnes peuvent dire voilà comment eux voient les problèmes, et il est aussi très très important que ce bilan soit partagé. Cette question du bilan et du fait que ce bilan soit participatif est un élément fondamental si on a envie justement d'utiliser les PU comme étant une occasion de développer une culture des droits de l'homme. Hier, il y a eu beaucoup d'interventions qui ont été faites, qui étaient très intéressantes de votre part, qui étaient très intéressantes et qui concernaient l'implication des parlementaires, qui sont effectivement qui ont un rôle très important à jouer, et on a bien vu comment est-ce qu'on est confronté avec un décalage entre ce que nous percevons et ce que nous disons sur la réalité des droits dans notre propre pays et ce que peuvent dire ou faire des parlementaires, ou au contraire ne pas faire. Et encore, les parlementaires sont très impliqués, mais, et on a aussi vu ça hier dans certaines des stratégies, comment est-ce que certains justement font appel à une véritable mobilisation de la population. On a eu cette discussion avec Liliane hier de Forum Asia. Comment est-ce que c'est essentiel d'avoir une mobilisation, un débat public qui lui-même va faire pression aussi sur les parlementaires. Donc ça sous-entend que quand on va parler des questions des droits fondamentaux, il faut qu'il y ait une certaine légitimité à ce que nous allons affirmer. Et aussi qu'il puisse y avoir un certain consensus à l'intérieur du pays. Ça, ce sont des éléments, enfin en tout cas quand je dis un consensus, c'est-à-dire un accord sur les éléments que nous décrivons. Sinon, il y aura toujours conflit, d'ailleurs ça se verra bel et bien à l'EPU, et ça se verra aussi lors des résultats. Donc la question de faire un bilan, et ensuite d'avoir des processus participatifs qui vont assurer la légitimité de ce que nous affirmons dans ce bilan, est quelque chose de très très important. Donc dans la première partie de la matinée, nous allons nous pencher sur deux approches et deux expériences en la matière, pour inclure les gens concernés dans le processus, sur la question de l'égalité homme-femme, qui est une question qui touche bien entendu tous nos États et toute la société, et sur certaines populations plus vulnérables. Et je remercie Pooja Patel du Service international des droits de l'homme et Francesco Corradini de Franciscans International. Franciscans International, ça se dit et ça se prononce avec un S au bout, donc j'ai fait une erreur dans le programme. Je m'en excuse auprès de Francesco. Donc, avec ces deux expériences, nous allons pouvoir voir justement des exemples de pratiques pour inclure les personnes concernées dans le processus de l'EPU. Alors, je commence tout de suite à donner la parole à Pooja, que je remercie particulièrement d'être avec nous. Elle a traversé une nuit très difficile, elle avait un rapport à terminer cette nuit, elle a terminé et envoyé son rapport, et ensuite elle est venue nous rejoindre. Donc c'est de l'ordre de l'exploit, et là, encore une fois, je la remercie et je lui passe la parole.
Thank you. Hello? Can you hear me? Good morning. It's nice to be here with everyone. This is the second time I've been invited to participate in this training, and it's always, I think, a very useful exercise. I understand that yesterday you have already gotten quite a lot of background about the UPR process in general, and also about the UPR process in the experiences in specific regions, and perhaps some country experiences as well. I wanted to just also provide a little bit of perhaps insight as to how to utilize the UPR process to further or to advance certain thematic areas. I'm working specifically in the area of women's rights and LGBT rights, and so I will speak from both experiences, and I will try to keep this more in terms of providing certain practical examples and practical experiences which maybe you can think about adopting if you find it useful. A lot of these experiences actually come from the experiences of many national coalitions who have been engaging with the UPR and have found it useful to work in this way. So if we think about the UPR as an ongoing process that never really ends, that's cyclical and has different phases of its cycle, before the working group session in Geneva, during the working group session in Geneva, and then back in your country to follow up on the working group session in Geneva. There are several things that can be done. In the preparation of the actual submissions for NGOs to the UPR, many groups that are working on specific thematic areas, focusing on specific vulnerable groups, often kind of adopt two parallel strategies. One is to join a national coalition to provide inputs into a joint submission of a broad number of NGOs working on several different areas. This means that particularly women's groups are able to provide some input into joint submissions where they can mainstream gender-related issues. So for instance, in sections which speak about conditions in detention, they can speak about, there can be a couple of sentences there on situation of women in detention. Same thing, for instance, with torture of women. Same thing, for instance, with many different broad and cross-cutting issues. So the idea is to kind of get to mainstream gender issues within that. The same thing with the rights of LGBT persons as well. Now, in addition to that, to complement that process, an individual submission is also submitted by specifically groups that are working on either women's rights or LGBT rights that can speak to to some of the more specific issues concerning the areas in which they work. For instance, legal frameworks pertaining specifically to women or to LGBT persons, specific patterns of violations, etc. I think perhaps yesterday it was also discussed that it's very difficult within the UPR system to actually talk about individual cases, that this isn't a space in which to raise individual cases, but rather to speak of patterns and trends of violations, to speak of kind of institutional, legal, structural frameworks that relate to the promotion and protection of human rights, etc. So in terms of reporting, actually, it would really, it's seen as kind of a practice that has worked to have this sort of two parallel processes. On the one hand, to join national coalitions for mainstreaming, and then to also have kind of, to complement that, a focused individual submission on a specific thematic issue. And then perhaps colleagues yesterday already spoke about lobbying states, etc. at the Capitol. Maybe, is that not too much? So in terms of kind of doing outreach and lobbying states in the capitals of the countries that you are from, I think that there is again kind of a two sort of parallel processes that can be undertaken. Again, I think that those groups that are working on specific thematic issues, when they continue to coordinate with national coalitions of, again, broad-based NGOs coming from different areas, they find that they are able to access, I think, a lot more opportunities for lobbying when they come together as a group. That's not always possible in every country. For instance, I think that it's very difficult in certain countries in this world for LGBT organizations to also be kind of brought as part of a national coalition. Sometimes it's not always easy. And so in such cases, you do find that there is kind of a parallel process where specific groups may also do their own lobbying with states at the capital. And then here, during the working group session here in Geneva, that presents a second opportunity to then meet with diplomats. I think it has to be mentioned that once you come to Geneva, that should not be the first time you've ever outreached to the particular countries which you are hoping will take up some of your recommendations. A lot of that should have already been done either at the capital, or that information should have been sent to permanent missions here in Geneva in advance. This is because by the time that you get here, most of the permanent missions have already often decided the issues that they're going to raise during the UPR, what recommendations they may make. So in that last moment, in the days leading up to the UPR, what you can do is A, find out what are the issues that a particular country is going to focus on, and B, suggest some tweaks. You know, tell them that, okay, that's a great recommendation, but you should formulate it a little bit like this. You should tweak the language a little bit like this. Or if they've got a list of 4 recommendations and they've only got 1.5 minutes in which to actually make the oral statement, you can actually